Breaking news into First Take this morning out of the NFL. The NFL has fined the Falcons $250,000 and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 for failing to prevent the disclosure of confidential information distributed to the club in advance of the NFL draft. Okay, RC, I will start with you. Your reaction? Yeah, I think this has to be done by the NFL. When you look at just all of the prank calls, but now a coach's son is calling an NFL hopeful or NFL draftee on the most important day of his life, and that is with the intention of being mean. That is with the intention of it having a negative effect. When you are in charge of this sort of sensitive information, it is your job to keep it confidential. And I think Jeff Ulbrich, being at his home, may have gotten too comfortable, but what this incident shows us is you never can be. You never can be in a situation where you have this sort of information and you don't protect it with your life, because this is not only your career, but this also affects many other people. Yeah, and what it comes down to, right? The league always talks about they want to safeguard the integrity of the game, right? And they want to safeguard information like this that they don't want getting out to the general public. Obviously, this is the general public. This is the man's son. And so I think there's two. It's kind of a twofold thing. It's like, one, this kind of information cannot be accessible to people in your family because they don't have any business having it, And then number two, what if this would have who's to say that his son couldn't potentially, or someone else couldn't potentially have access to any other kind of information that Jeff Ulbrich has that would compromise the integrity of the Atlanta Falcons, what they're trying to get done as a football team? I mean, there's a lot of different layers to this. So I think what they're trying to say is, hey, look, you better be more careful now. Going forward, coaches, you better be more careful, especially if, you have some sensitive information like that laying around your house. What would be interesting is to hear the conversation that he had with his son about this. Because this is a 21-year-old young man who did this. This isn't something old, 15-year-old. Yeah, it's a disaster with the kid, 100% right. Oh, why are the Falcons getting the $250,000 fine? I mean, Ulbrich had the number. The Falcons are not supposed to give it to Ulbrich? Of course he has to have the number. He's a defensive coordinator. So why the Falcons I know the NFL is trying to spread the blame around, but I don't quite understand why. I don't understand how it's, Arthur Blank's fault that Ulbrich's kid, when Ulbrich had the number, did a bad thing. It's not Blank's kid, it's Ulbrich's kid. And Ulbrich works at Falcons. He got the number at home, he took it, so we gotta blame Atlanta? Well, I don't quite understand why they get the $250,000 line. Some interesting thing about that to me is this: when you say, Ulbrich works for the Atlanta Falcons, he has to have the number. Shedeur Sanders is a quarterback. Jeff Ulbrich is a defensive coordinator. Why does he need to have the number? What do you need to have the number for in that particular? He obviously didn't, because the kid's doing it for what? And then also, too, you find the Atlanta Falcons so you can put some sort of accountability on the organization. Right, because as you know, it's one thing to have to regulate yourself, but when we have people to answer to now, that pressure that is being put on them, it also trickles down to you. So I think that's a part of the NFL also saying that, yes, this time it was Jax Ulbrich, right? What happens the next time? Or what happens if it takes another step where some of this information gets out and now one of these individuals is actually physically injured? And so I think it's more about making a point. We need all of you to be locked in. Well, y'all are absolutely right. I mean, the fact of the matter is you have to find the organization because you're connected to the individual. You employ the individual that this happened with. And so you're looking at the organization to let them know there's a level of culpability. That way, you don't have to concern yourself with the enforcement. The organization itself will concern itself with the enforcement, and it trickles down from there. I feel bad for Jeff Ulbrich. From the standpoint that, yeah, it's $100,000 fine, and obviously that's some money. The man ain't walking around making tens of millions of dollars or anything like that. But the other side to this is an incredible embarrassment. That 21-year-old kid, Jax, should have had his ass whipped. And the 21-year-old man, 21-year-old, right? He should have his ass whipped, number one. Number two, I mean, it's like I wanted to refrain from putting him on screen like I told you the other day. But yeah, I didn't know when you were talking about it the other day, Lewis, that the dude had put it out on social media. I had no idea. I knew he knew the story. Right, I never seen the video. Right, I'm like, this idiot actually went out there and did it. He filmed it. He had himself filmed, doing it. I mean, no regard for Shedeur. No regard for his father. Yep. No regard for any kind of decency or any kind of decorum. Is really, really sad. I think all of these fines are absolutely positively appropriate. And as far as I'm concerned, he should be Jax. I'm talking about he should be put on Front Street because of what and just to be clear, right? I mean, Shador Sanders wasn't the only player that was prank called. Yeah. But during that fast, so for everyone who's kind of like hitting me up, going, "Well, you ain't mad about everyone else." Look, Shador's is the most high-profile one that we're talking about in the world. And the most exactly. But look, I think this speaks to a bigger problem anyway, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and that's just that the blatant disregard or any of respect for what these guys are trying to accomplish, and the fact that we always feel the need to kind of like make a mockery out of something, and try and make a joke out of something. Not everything needs to be made a joke out of, right? Everything doesn't need to have this kind of little twist put on it, man. So people need to like kind of grow up in these kind of. But you look at it slightly different. Now you gotta say you look at it slightly differently than I do, Lewis. You think they were joking? I think they were intentionally trying to hurt him. Agreed. Well, yes, and I'm using the word joking loosely. I mean, yeah, of course, that's what I'm talking. You're doing something that you because remember, look, and I went back and I watched the video. And remember what Jack said to him. You know, you New Orleans Saints from Mickey Loomis. You know, I know you're looking forward to us. Well, it ain't gonna happen today. Right. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to have to wait a little longer. Yeah, it's like, damn. This whole thing was egregious, and it's wrong for any player, but it was certainly kicking a man when it's down when you talk about Shador Sanders and what was a national story in a humiliating situation. Adam Schefter said this yesterday, and I want to get your perspective on this. He said, "I've not heard anybody talk about this, but I got a text on Sunday night that said the Shador prank is awful, but shows their naivete by not hiring an agent. The fact that they had the league send his number to the entire football distribution list was a mistake, one that wouldn't have happened with an agent who would have handled the communication." Well, I mean, maybe that's I don't know how Jeff Ulbrich gets the know exactly. Okay, that answers that. That answers the question for doesn't make it okay. I just want no. It doesn't make it okay, but I think it answers one of Lou's questions. Why would Jeff Ulbrich? It sure does. We're saying sure does. And I didn't know. A lot of times too, you have to think about what's going into what he's dealing with right now, and having the embarrassment. And also having to deal with your son. And you also don't know what's going on within a family. And it's no excuse for a 21-year-old man to behave in this manner. But it speaks to what Lewis is saying as well. There is no respect for other humans. There is no understanding or compassion for what they're going through. Because when you talk about Shador Sanders in particular, when you listen to what he said to him, it was totally an intent to play on what he was going through at the time, right? It's not like calling Tyler Warren, who was supposedly who goes 14th overall. It's not like calling some of these players that were picked on the first day. And so it's a moment where you get a laugh. This is a man who is obviously dealing with a ton. All of the cameras are on him. He's trying to have poise and composure through this, and you build him up to break him down. I think that's your heart. That's more. I think there's a lot of people, RC, that kind of still look at sports, regardless of whether or not it's professional or not, as just a game, and it's not just a game at this level. These are people's livelihoods. People put a lot of physical and emotional investment into these, and that's not something to be toyed with and disrespected in that way. This is not Bob Warner. This is not how to see football. This is real life. Athletes are human beings. That's how I want to get with you. Well, the one thing is, the NFL sent that number to every member of the Atlanta Falcons. So that's a lot of people in that front office. That's 50 people. That's scouts, that's coordinators, that's head coaches, that's the GM, that's the assistant GM. No, the NFL sent that many. That's all over the place on the distribution list. So I would assume the teams can regulate who within the organization gets access. Well, it's got to be 20, 30 people. I don't know if every area scout and every scouting assistant needs to have that number. I'm sure the team can determine who it is that gets these numbers within the organization. Clearly, coordinators probably get the numbers then, so I get that. I understand that. I don't want to depress you, Lewis, but we got a lot of ignorant 21-year-olds out here, for sure. And there's a whole bunch of them. What you don't normally see is one of them having complete disregard for their own parent. And that's why I keep bringing up Jeff Ulbrich. Yep. Because we don't believe for 1 second he had something to do with this. So his son had no regard for him. So the joking part is accurate. The disregard for another human being like Shador Sanders is definitely so as well. But at the very least, you would see somebody that age having a level of consideration for their own parent, who was a former football player in the NFL player. He did not. He should have protected, but think about this. You home, think about how you would feel. I got my laptop, I'm gonna drink, eat in my house, yeah, and I'm thinking, what feeling violated? What parent do you think is sitting there worried that my child is going to go into my laptop computer and do something like that? Yeah. But who would think that? Stephen A., I think it's a microcosm of society, and it's a bigger conversation for a show like The Pivot to have, and I'm being honest, I'm not being facetious, because everybody's trying to have their moment. And it's TikTok, and it's Instagram, and it's all these things. And we're just disregarding, I think, human nature. That's right, your point, and acting like these athletes are, and that's why I brought in the parent part, because everything you said is 100% right, Molly. But usually there's at least one line that's not right, Ross. Right. And when that line is when you have no regard for your own faults, and the potential damage it could do to him, it shows you are really a problem. Then you know what it is. Like, you know how it is with your parents. Part of that respect was a healthy level of fear. Yeah. Of what the consequences are to my actions. Yeah. Yes, this we believe in. To be continued, so you could do that on The Pivot. Let us know when that special comes up. Right after your show.